They said the signal was gone, lost in the static of that stormy night. But somewhere between the silence and the thunder, Hollow Creek spoke again. A voice, faint, distorted, repeating the same message over and over. Some call it a malfunction, others, a warning. Whatever it was, the town hasn't been the same since. And tonight, we play that last broadcast, one more time.
계속 듣고 싶다면 좋아요 눌러주고 구독해주세요. 당신의 좋아요 하나, 우리에게 큰 힘이 됩니다. If you enjoy these real stories, leave a like and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive.
I never meant to return to Hollow Creek. I told myself the same thing for 12 years, that the place was buried under too many winters, too many nights I couldn't explain. But when the radio tower on the ridge flickered back to life after more than a decade of silence, I felt something in my chest pull me north. The locals said the station was cursed. They said anyone who tried to broadcast from there ended up hearing voices, not feedback, not interference, but answers. When I was a kid, I believed it. When I grew up, I became a journalist. And I told myself I didn't. That's how I justify coming back with my recorder and an old van full of equipment. Curiosity disguised as courage. The road twisted upward through pine and fog, thin and colorless like smoke. The tower appeared at dusk, black metal bones against a dim red sky. The door to the control cabin hung open, creaking softly in the wind. Inside, the air smelled of mold, dust, and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit left in a jar. I set up my recorder, checked the transmitter, and waited for the hum of power to stabilize. It didn't. The sound wavered, deepened, and then another voice folded beneath it. Not human, not quite. It was slow, rhythmical, like syllables dragged through water. Nariel, Bogo it near. The words brushed against my mind before I could translate them. My mother used to whisper Korean lullabies when I couldn't sleep. This sounded like that, but cracked, older, stretched through centuries of dust. I switched off the mic. The silence after was too heavy. My own breathing sounded wrong, delayed, as if the air itself was replaying me half a second late. When I stepped outside, the forest was dark, except for the low flicker of my van's headlights through the mist. The trees leaned close. I heard something move, not a footstep, but a rhythm, like a stick tapping on wood. Toke, toke, toke. Then laughter, soft and hollow, bouncing between the trunks. I called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Just wind, and the faint metallic echo of my own voice repeating somewhere deeper in the woods. That night, I slept inside the van, with the recorder still running. At 2:37 a.m., the static shifted again. A voice, maybe mine, said quietly, "Don't look at it. It remembers your face." I woke up drenched in sweat. The air was thick with pine and rain. And outside, standing just beyond the fogged glass of my window, something watched, not human, not beast, but tall and twisted, with a faint red glow where its eyes should have been. When I blinked, it was gone. Only a handprint remained on the glass, shaped wrong, like it belonged to something that didn't know how many fingers a human should have. I told myself it was condensation, just condensation. But when the morning came, the imprint was still there, and beneath it, carved faintly into the fogged glass, were the words, "We never stopped listening." The second night was worse. By dusk, the fog had thickened into a pale, moving wall. Every breath felt wet, metallic, as if I were inhaling the rust off the tower itself. I left the van door open to air it out, but the forest filled the silence too easily. Every sound, the wind, the pines shifting, the distant hum of power lines, carried something extra, a kind of after sound that didn't belong. I kept thinking about that handprint on the glass. It hadn't faded with the morning sun. The grooves of the print had burned into the condensation, leaving behind faint trails that shimmered whenever light hit them. 5 fingers. No, 6. I counted them again and again until I doubted my own memory. I went back into the broadcast room, determined to rationalize what was happening. It was just interference, I told myself. Old towers pick up stray frequencies all the time. Voices, laughter, those could have been echoes from nearby transmissions or a prank signal from some teenager who found out about the legend of Hollow Creek. But when I replayed the night's recording, it wasn't a voice or laughter that came through. It was breathing, deep, steady, rhythmic. It started faintly, grew louder, then merged with static until it became something else entirely. The low, guttural resonance of a drum. Not mechanical, human, primal. There were other sounds too. Wood knocking against wood, whispered syllables. Then, at 2:41 a.m., a new voice appeared, my own speaking a sentence I never said. It remembers when we tried to burn it. I froze. My heart pounded like the drum itself. I didn't move for nearly a minute, just listening, waiting for proof that it was a glitch, a splice, a software error. But the voice repeated the same phrase, slightly slower, the tone almost mournful. It remembers when we tried to burn it. The power flickered. Every monitor in the cabin blinked with white noise. Then, for less than a second, an image appeared on the security feed, greenish, distorted by static. It showed a figure standing at the tree line, half obscured by fog. The same faint red glow shimmered where its eyes should have been. I shut off the power. The darkness that followed felt alive. Outside, something was moving beneath the antennae, slow, deliberate steps crunching the gravel. I stepped out with a flashlight, my pulse hammering against my ribs. The beam caught the base of the tower, where the old concrete foundation was cracked open. I crouched closer. There was something buried inside the fracture, a wooden mask, its paint flaked and worn, its mouth twisted into a crooked grin. The mask looked ancient, Korean, unmistakably. The kind my grandmother used to show me in old family photos from a village near Andorn. A tall mask used in shamanic rites. But this one was different. The wood pulsed faintly like it was breathing. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. The air around it was thick with pressure, humming faintly as if the tower above were resonating in sympathy. I backed away slowly, one step at a time, until I reached the cabin. That night, the dreams came. In them, I was a child again, standing in a rice field beneath a bleeding red moon. My grandmother's voice echoed somewhere behind me, calling my Korean name, Ji-hoon-ah. Her tone was sharp, trembling with fear. She held a small lamp and kept looking over her shoulder. The light flickered, and something large moved in the dark behind her horn, crouched, laughing in a voice that didn't belong to this world. When I woke up, the cabin lights were on, and the recorder was still running. I didn't remember turning it on. On the tape, my own
계속
voice
듣고
was whispering,
싶다면 좋아요
"Doesn't
눌러주고
want me to leave."
구독해주세요. 당신의 좋아요 하나 우리에게 큰 힘이 됩니다. If you enjoy these real stories, leave a like and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive.
The sentence was followed by scratching sounds, not random ones, measured, deliberate, like carving letters into wood. I turned toward the door. Someone, or something, had etched the same words into the wooden frame, in English and Hangul both. It doesn't want me to leave. The scratches were deep, still damp, as if freshly made. I tried the engine of my van. It sputtered once, twice, and died. The headlights flickered weakly, then dimmed to black. The air outside, had changed again. The fog no longer looked like mist, but smoke, swirling in circles around the base of the tower. And somewhere inside that smoke, I heard the same wooden rhythm again. Talk, talk, talk. Only now it was answering me. I grabbed the recorder, pressed the mic against the window and shouted, "What are you?" The knock stopped. Silence. Then a voice, distorted but unmistakably clear, came through the static of my radio. "We are the memory that survived your forgetting." And for the first time, I realized it wasn't trying to frighten me. It was reminding me, because Hollow Creek wasn't just a place where I once worked. It was the same land my grandmother fled when she left Korea in the 1950s, a patch of mountain soil carried here, replanted, blessed, and eventually built over. The tower stood exactly where the altar of her village shrine once did. The dark Arby hadn't followed me here. It had never left. At dawn, I found the mask again, half buried under frost. I brushed it clean, just to see its eyes, tiny black holes, infinite, swallowing the light whole. And then, in the faint reflection of its polished surface, I saw myself no longer as I was, but as something watching me from inside. My own mouth curved upward, though I hadn't smiled. Something inside me whispered in Korean, "Now you remember." I dropped the mask and stumbled backward, my breath white in the morning air. The radio tower crackled behind me, one speaker at a time waking up, whispering fragments of my grandmother's voice, my own, and another, deeper tone underneath, ancient and playful. "Let's play again, Juhuna." The forest answered with laughter not mocking, not cruel, but endless, echoing, layered over itself until it became the wind. I stood there, powerless, and knew with absolute certainty the broadcast had already begun, and I was the signal. By the third day, sleep had become impossible. The fog no longer lifted, even at noon. It rolled through the trees like breath, thick and deliberate, pressing against the cabin windows as if it wanted in. Every sound carried weight, the crack of branches, the whisper of leaves, the quiet rhythm of something unseen pacing around the tower. I tried to rationalize it again. The mind invents patterns under isolation. Echoes become whispers. Wind becomes speech. But the rational voice in my head was fading fast, drowned beneath the memory of that laugh, the one that came from every direction at once, like the forest itself was remembering how to be alive. The mask was gone when I checked the antennae base that morning. In its place lay a ring of small stones, perfectly round, each carved with a crude face. Dozens of them, smiling the same crooked grin as the wooden mask. Their mouths were wide, their eyes hollow. I crouched down to study one and realized they weren't carved, they were burned. The pattern had been branded into the stone, as if by heat, yet the edges were cold to the touch. That was when I noticed the smell, smoke and pine sap, and beneath it, faintly, something like old blood. I turned to go back inside, but a sound stopped me. The radio tower was humming again, softly, almost like a tune, a deep vibration rising through the metal and into the ground. It was forming a rhythm, slow and careful. Tock, tock, tock. The same heartbeat I'd heard before. Without thinking, I climbed the narrow metal ladder to the top of the tower. My hands were shaking, the rungs slick with frost. Halfway up, I heard movements behind me. Something scraping the metal below, a whisper of breath. I froze. "Who's there?" I called out. A pause. Then, faintly, a child's voice. "You promised you'd come back." I turned sharply. Nothing, only fog. But the metal beneath my boots vibrated, carrying that laughter again, high, fragile, like bells rusting in the wind. At the top, the air was so still it felt unreal. The fog swirled far below, and for a brief moment, I saw shapes moving through it, shadows of figures, some walking upright, others bent or crawling, their limbs too long. They circled the tower base like pilgrims around a shrine. I raised my recorder, trying to catch the sound, and my reflection flashed in the transmitter glass. But it wasn't my reflection. The face looking back was half mine, half something older. The skin along the cheekbones was cracked like dried clay, the eyes darker, glinting with faint red light. The mouth stretched into that same unnatural grin, the grin of the mask. The reflection whispered, "Don't fight it. You called us first." Then it vanished. I stumbled back, nearly lost my footing, and climbed down as fast as I could. The ground seemed to tilt beneath me when I landed. Every tree looked wrong, slightly bent, as if leaning toward me. The forest had changed. I tried to leave. I really did. I packed the recorder, my notes, the tapes. I followed the dirt path toward the highway, but after 10 minutes, the path curved, split, and ended at the same tower again. I tried another direction, same result. Every route circled back. The air tasted stale, iron sweet. I realized then that Hollow Creek wasn't letting me go. That night, I found the mask, again this time hanging inside the cabin, above the doorway. Its grin had widened, the eyes now hollow holes bleeding a faint red light. Beneath it, etched into the wall, were new words, "You left us in the fire." And beneath that, in smaller Hangul letters, my grandmother's name. I sat on the floor for a long time, shaking. The memories came back slowly, half dream, half buried truth. I remembered her voice telling stories about the Dokar bee who lived behind the kill in her village, a spirit of fire and wood who punished liars and thieves. She said it once wore the face of her husband after he died in the war. She said it whispered to her in her sleep, promising to keep the family safe if she made the right offerings. But she stopped the offerings. She fled to America. And maybe, somehow, the spirit followed, not in body, but in memory, passed down, waiting in the cracks of the mind until someone returned to the soil that remembered its name. When the clock hit midnight, the broadcast light turned on by itself. A voice came through the speakers, not mine this time. "Long ago, you burned our home. You buried our names. Now, we burn inside yours." The cabin door swung open. Wind howled through the opening, scattering my papers, tearing at the walls. The mask fell and shattered, but from within the splintered wood, black smoke poured out, curling upward, shaping itself into a face. It leaned close to me, and in that same childlike voice, it whispered, "We only wanted to play." I ran, through the fog, through the trees, until my legs gave out. The forest went silent. When I looked back, the cabin lights flickered once, then went out. But in the distance, the red glow of the tower pulsed, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. I don't know how long I lay there. When dawn came, the forest was empty again. No smoke, no voices, no tower, just the faint smell of burnt pine. I thought maybe it was over, but when I reached my van, the windows were covered in symbols drawn in ash, circles and faces, all grinning. And in the middle of the windshield, someone had written, "We broadcast through you now." I wiped it clean, but the letters remained, faint and oily, burned into the glass. I started the engine, half expecting it to fail again. It started. The relief almost made me cry. I drove until the forest gave way to highway, until the fog disappeared behind me. Only when I stopped for gas at a roadside diner did I notice the change. The attendant stared at me too long. I caught my reflection in the glass door. There, faint beneath the skin of my left cheek, was a dark grain pattern wood grain. like something had begun carving itself beneath my flesh. I turned away from the mirror. The hum of distant static followed me out of the restroom, faint and rhythmic, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. When I opened the door to leave, the bell above the frame rang twice, once for me and once for something that followed. When I finally reached the nearest town, I thought the nightmare would dissolve under daylight. Towns have edges. Horror, I told myself, doesn't survive fluorescent lights and the noise of people. But the first thing I noticed was how quiet Hollow Ridge had become. The streets looked normal: gas stations, motels, a convenience store, but every window was closed, curtains drawn, like the whole town was holding its breath. I parked outside a small diner, the kind that always smells like coffee and burnt toast. The neon sign flickered between open and nothing at all. Inside, only one man sat at the counter, stirring his drink without looking up. The waitress, thin grey hair, face too pale, watched me from behind the register. "Long drive?" she asked. Her voice was soft but trembled faintly. "From Hollow Creek," I said, before realizing I should have lied. Her hand froze on the counter. The man at the stall turned his head slightly, revealing eyes that looked drained, as if he hadn't slept in years. "No one goes up there anymore," the waitress said. "Not since the fires." "What fires?" She hesitated, then leaned forward. "The mountain used to have a village. Korean immigrants, before the war. My granddad said they built a kiln near the river, used it for pottery and prayers both. They said strange lights came from it at night. Then one winter the whole place burnt down. They said it was lightning, but the old people..." She stopped, her eyes darting toward the man, who gave the smallest shake of his head. "They said it wasn't lightning. They said it laughed." The man at the counter spoke for the first time. His voice was rough, like gravel dragged through water. "You heard it, didn't you?" I stared. "What?" "The tower." The voice inside the static. "It talks to anyone who listens long enough." He finally turned his head fully. His left ear was missing. Just a scar. "Don't listen again. It needs the sound of a human throat." I left without finishing my coffee. Outside, the air felt heavier again, the kind of thick humidity that precedes a storm. I drove to the motel and checked in under a false name. The clerk didn't ask questions. He just slid the key across the counter with a whisper. "If you hear knocking tonight, don't open the door." The room smelled like mildew and rain. I set up my recorder on the bedside table, more from habit than reason, and pressed record. I told myself I was documenting trauma, nothing more. That's what reporters do. They organize chaos. They turn horror into paragraphs. But around 11 p.m., the static started again. It came from the old TV in the corner, screen dead, power unplugged. A faint hum, then a whisper of syllables forming beneath the noise. "Jehuna, why did you bury me?" I froze, my grandmother's voice. Not her voice exactly, but something wearing it, replaying the tone, the hesitation. "You promised. You would light the kill again." The lights flickered. The air in the room grew cold enough to fog my breath. I grabbed my phone, trying to record video. But the screen distorted, the image bending into slow spirals, lines of code spilling across it like veins. The voice returned, lower now, layered with others. Men, women, children, all speaking at once. "We remember the fire. We remember your name. We are the ash that learned to speak." The bathroom door creaked open. On its own, water began to drip from the faucet, though I hadn't turned it. The droplets hit the sink, rhythmically, slow, precise, toke, toke, toke. And under that sound, faint but clear, was laughter. I grabbed the recorder and fled the room. The hallway lights flickered as I passed each door. I could hear televisions inside every other room, all playing the same static hum, all synced to the same pulse. Toke, toke, toke. At the far end of the hall, a door was open. Inside, a glow pulsed from an old radio set. I should have run the other way, but something in me, curiosity, obsession, maybe possession, pushed me forward. The room was empty, except for the radio. Its dial was spinning on its own, sweeping through frequencies faster than any motor could move. And in between the static bursts, words flickered through, half in English, half in Korean, merging and unmerging like breathing. We never died. We became the signal. The mountain breathes through your tongue. The air pressure dropped. My ears popped. I stumbled backward and hit the wall. For a split second, the static cleared, and I saw an image on the radio's reflection. Dozens of faces pressed against glass, mouths open, smiling the same impossible smile. The radio exploded. When I woke up, it was morning. The motel was empty. My car was gone. The front desk bell was ringing by itself, slow and steady. Tock, tock, tock. Outside, a thin mist was rolling down the street again, too early for fog. The power lines buzzed faintly, and from somewhere far away, I could hear the tower's frequency bleeding through the static of a nearby truck radio. Welcome back, Jehuna. I ran. I didn't even know where anymore. Every street looked identical. The fog kept thickening, swallowing the horizon. And then I realized what was happening. The closer I moved toward the edge of town, the more the world looped. I passed the same sign 3 times. Leaving Hollow Ridge, come again soon. The letters rearranged themselves each time, shifting until the sign finally read, "You never left." The static filled the sky now, a low hum that vibrated in my ribs. My vision blurred, edges melting, colors dissolving. The world flickered between what was real and something older, fields of blackened soil. A cracked kill glowing faintly red, silhouettes of people kneeling before it. I saw her, my grandmother, standing among them, face streaked with soot, eyes hollow. She held the wooden mask, pressing it to her chest. The figure beside her horned, half smiling. Its face of smoke whispered something into her ear. She turned toward me and said, "It's your turn." I screamed her name, but no sound came out. The world snapped back. I was standing in the middle of the road, the motel behind me burning quietly. No flames, just smoke rising in perfect spirals. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a new voicemail notification. The timestamp read 2:37 a.m., the same time as the first broadcast. When I played it, I heard only static. Then faintly, my own voice whispered, "The signal breathes now." I dropped the phone. The sound didn't stop. It was coming from everywhere, from the street lights, from the power lines, from the hum of the earth beneath my feet. Every vibration carried that same heartbeat rhythm, toke, 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 and under it, laughter. Endless, familiar. The air smelled like smoke again. When I looked up, the sky wasn't sky anymore. It was the reflection of a tower, massive and ancient, stretching upward into the fog. And hanging from its beams were hundreds of wooden masks, each one grinning, each one whispering my name in unison. Jehuna. The world tilted. My knees buckled. Then, just before everything went black, I felt a warm breath against my ear and a whisper that wasn't cruel or mocking, but almost gentle. Don't be afraid. You're only remembering. Approximately 10,192 characters. Chapter 4 complete. Would you like me to continue directly with Chapter 5? The Killer Voices. Same 10,000. Character cinematic format. The last broadcast from Hollow Creek. The Breath of the Dark Abbey. Chapter 5. the kill of voices. I don't know how many hours I walked before the road turned back into dirt. The fog had followed me again, low and alive, curling through the trees like smoke through a chimney. Every step forward made the world quieter. Even my breathing began to sound distant, muffled by the static in the air. I found the river by accident, a slow black ribbon winding through the forest. Its surface rippled, though no wind touched it. When I leaned closer, the reflection staring back wasn't mine. The eyes were mine, but older, darker, with a faint red gleam pulsing like coals. The mouth moved before I did, whispering, "You built the tower where we were buried." I fell backward onto the damp ground. The smell of smoke thickened. Through the trees a faint orange light pulsed, rhythmic as breath. I followed it, drawn like a moth. The forest opened into a clearing I hadn't seen before. At its center stood what looked like an enormous kill, cracked and blackened, half swallowed by moss and earth. Its mouth was wide, circular, and from within came a low, steady hum, the same frequency as the tower's broadcast. I circled it slowly. The outer stones were carved with hangul, faded and incomplete. My grandmother's handwriting was among them, etched deep into the surface the fire remembers. When I touched the stone, warmth bled into my palm. The kill wasn't dead. It was breathing. A voice rose from the center, faint at first, then many hundreds overlapping, men and women, laughter and sobbing and whispers. They weren't angry. They were lonely. We waited in the smoke. You forgot our names. You built towers instead of altars. I stumbled back, covering my ears. But the voices didn't come from the kill anymore. They came from inside me, vibrating against my ribs, filling the hollow spaces behind my eyes. I fell to my knees. The earth beneath me was hot, the air dense with ashes. For a moment, I saw them shapes rising from the kill's mouth, human silhouettes woven from cinders and breath. Some wore the old tall masks, some didn't. Their faces flickered between sorrow and mockery. One figure stepped closer, taller than the rest, its horns faintly curved like burnt branches. Its voice was both male and female, echoing with layers of time. "Do you know what a Dokabi really is?" it asked. I tried to speak, but my throat felt full of dust. We are what's left when memory refuses to die. We are stories that found flesh. It tilted its head, studying me and you, Jehuna. You were born from one. I shook my head, gasping. "No. My family left the mountain. We left all this," the creature smiled. "You cannot leave something that breathes through your blood." The ground trembled. From the cracks in the earth, faint glows emerged, shards of pottery, fragments of bowls and masks buried long ago. They pulsed in unison with my heartbeat. "Your grandmother's promise was never kept," the Dokabi said. The offerings ended, the stories stopped, and so we slept. But the signal woke us. You called us back when you turned on the tower. I remembered the first broadcast. The faint hum, the voice beneath the static, the way it had whispered my name. "I didn't mean to," I said. The Dokabi laughed softly, almost kindly. "Intent doesn't matter to memory. It only needs to be heard." It reached out, and its hand, if you could call it that, brushed against my chest. The touch burned cold. Visions rushed in, my grandmother kneeling before the kill, smoke rising behind her, a village engulfed in fire, dozens of figures dancing through the flames, laughing as the roofs collapsed. The kill's hum grew louder. The shapes around me began to circle, their movements ritualistic, synchronized. I realized I was inside the echo of an ancient ceremony, the kind that binds, not frees. "You can end this," the Dokabi said. "Light the fire again. Give us a name." The words sank into me like hooks. I felt the pull of obedience, of blood memory. My hands moved on their own, gathering dry branches from the clearing. The air thrummed, guiding me. When I struck the match, the flame rose too fast, too bright. The kill roared to life, red light spilling over the forest. The shadows danced like joyous phantoms. The voices grew louder, overlapping until they became a single deafening chord. Then silence. The fire vanished. The kill stood empty. The clearing was cold again. I looked down at my hands. The skin was darkened, faintly charred, veins glowing with ember light beneath. My reflection in the killy wall stared back, half human, half something else. In the distance, the tower lights blinked to life again. A new frequency hummed through the night, lower, heavier, alive. I turned toward it. The sound wasn't outside anymore. It was inside me, resonating with every heartbeat. The Dokabee's final whisper echoed in my skull. Every broadcast needs a host. The road out of the forest no longer existed. The trees had rearranged themselves overnight, trunks standing too close together. Their bark cracked like burnt skin, branches woven tight like ribs. I knew the way to the highway by heart, but every direction led back toward the tower's silhouette, pulsing faint red through the fog. It wasn't just a beacon anymore. It was breathing. Every pulse sent a low vibration through the ground, through my shoes, through my bones. When I pressed my hand against my chest, I felt the same rhythm, the same frequency. Toke, toke, toke. I told myself it was fear, adrenaline, hallucination, but the sound didn't fade. It matched the heartbeat, then replaced it. I turned on the recorder again, desperate for proof. The playback caught something beneath the static, my voice trembling, distorted. They're inside the frequency now. I can hear them moving through the hum. I stopped the recording. The hum didn't stop. It came from everything, the trees, the soil, even the wind, and beneath it, faintly, the same overlapping laughter I'd heard in the kill. By evening, I reached what used to be a ranger's cabin, half collapsed and overgrown. I forced the door open and found the interior untouched by time. Old maps, a broken radio, a cracked photograph of two men standing beside the tower, smiling proudly. On the back, written in fading pen, Hollow Creek Radio, -1954. Built where the kill once stood. The earth still sings. The earth still sings. I sat in the corner, staring at those words until the sun disappeared, and then the static returned first in the radio, then through the walls themselves. The air thickened, vibrating with an unseen energy. I covered my ears, but the sound came from inside. Every frequency carried whispers, overlapping languages. Some I recognized, old Korean dialects, others I'd never heard. All of them called my name, Juho-na. We're still waiting, the fire's not done. The pressure in my head built until I screamed. For a moment, the sound shattered the hum, and in that silence, I heard something else. Footsteps, soft, deliberate. A shadow crossed the doorway. I froze. The figure stepped inside, tall, wrapped in darkness, its outline flickering like bad reception. Its head tilted slightly, as if curious. The air around it shimmered with heat. I couldn't see its face clearly, but where the eyes should have been, faint red light pulsed synchronized with my heartbeat. "You lit the fire," it said. Its voice was layered, like several people speaking at once. "Now you must keep it alive. I didn't mean to. Intentions are ashes. Memory is flame." The figure moved closer. The smell of burnt wood filled the room. I stepped back until my spine hit the wall. The radio behind me crackled to life again, and from it came a child's voice, my grandmother's lullaby, warped and echoing, sung backwards. "Don't look away," the figure whispered. Its hand reached out, fingers made of smoke and ember. When it touched my forehead, light exploded behind my eyes. Suddenly, I wasn't in the cabin anymore. I was back at the kill, but it was whole again, alive, glowing orange. People gathered around it. The villagers were singing, their shadows dancing on the trees. My grandmother was there, younger, smiling. Then her face changed, fear, realization. The horned figure stepped from the flames, smiling with wooden teeth. "The offering is incomplete," it said. The villagers screamed. The fire roared higher. I saw my grandmother running, clutching a bundle wrapped in cloth, crying, "Forgive me." The bundle moved. A baby's cry echoed through the forest. The dark army turned toward her, laughter shaking the ground. When I came to, the figure in the cabin was gone. The firelight had returned, faint and steady, glowing from beneath the floorboards. I pried one loose. Beneath the wood lay a hollow space filled with ashes and bones, small ones, and in the ashes, a burnt piece of fabric, embroidered in faded thread, my name. I stumbled backward. The walls of the cabin began to shake. The static grew louder until it became a scream of frequencies. The tower outside was flickering uncontrollably now, sparks raining down its length. Through the roar, I heard the voices again, closer, clearer. The bloodline remembers the tower is the new kill. You are the offering. The fire beneath the floor spread in thin lines, tracing symbols across the wood, Hanjul characters, glowing orange, forming a circle around me. Wood, fire, memory, name. I tried to step out of it, but my legs wouldn't move. The air thickened, vibrating with unbearable heat. The circle flared brighter. For a moment, I saw faces rising from it. My grandmother, my father, others I didn't know, all smiling through the flames. The tower's light outside turned blood red. Then a final whisper, "Breathe in. The signal needs a voice." I gasped, and the fire rushed into me. It didn't burn, it filled. The world dissolved into static. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing outside, the night completely silent. The tower no longer flickered, it glowed steadily, calm, pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. My recorder was gone. My hands were blackened with soot. I could still hear them, faintly, inside my skull, voices humming in perfect unison, not angry, not mourning, just waiting. And when I exhaled, the fog around me shifted. It didn't drift away, it moved toward me, pulled by breath. The static followed, coiling like smoke, rising from my mouth in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Toke, toke, toke. Each pulse echoed through the valley. Lights flickered in the distance. Radios in the empty town crackled back to life. And somewhere, far away, a new broadcast began. My voice. "This is Jehoon Kim, reporting live from Hollow Creek. If you can hear this, it's already too late." When I woke the next morning, I was standing at the foot of the tower. I don't remember walking there. The van, the forest path, even the ranger's cabin all gone. The clearing looked wider now, stripped bare. Every tree leaned outward as if the tower had pushed them away. The air shimmered with faint electrical hums, invisible threads connecting everything. It wasn't just sound, it was sensation. Each pulse of static crawled under my skin like a shiver of insects. The tower's surface was no longer metal. Up close, I saw that the steel was bleeding through layers of something organic wood grain, like bark twisting in and out of metal, alive and breathing. The surface flexed when I touched it, and the hum deepened. I looked up. The antennae was glowing faintly, the same crimson that had haunted my dreams. The light pulsed slower than before, each beat aligning with my pulse. That's when I realized the rhythm wasn't matching me. I was matching it. I turned on my recorder again. My voice cracked as I spoke. The signal has a body now. It's inside the tower. Or maybe the tower is inside it. I can hear it, breathing. It knows me. A flicker passed through the air, like lightning trapped inside fog. Then came the smell smoke, and something sweet, rotting. I turned slowly, and there it was, again the mask, hanging from a branch at eye level, smiling that impossible curved smile. Only this time, it was mine. The mask had my features, my cheekbones, my lips, the faint scar above my eyebrow. Its eyes were hollow, filled with static, but I could feel them following me. I stumbled backward. The mask swung gently, though there was no wind. "Why are you afraid of your own face?" a voice whispered. It came from everywhere, the trees, the soil, my bones. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't stop. "You gave us your voice, Jihuna. Now your face belongs to us too." The mask tilted slightly, as if laughing. Its mouth stretched wider, revealing darkness that wasn't empty, but moving, something behind the grin, writhing and whispering like 100 unseen mouths. My legs buckled. I hit the ground hard. The world flickered. For a moment I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was inside the signals, rounded by waves of sound and light, floating through endless static. I saw faces there, distorted, looping through fragments of time. Villagers, soldiers, children, all whispering the same sentence in rhythm. "The kill burns again." Then the images shifted. My grandmother's face, her eyes glowing faint red. Her lips moved without sound, then cracked open with a hiss of smoke. "We never stop praying," she said. The static swallowed her. When I blinked, I was back at the tower. My hands were bleeding. I must have clawed at the soil trying to get away. The ground beneath me was marked with faint Hangul characters, burned into the dirt. The name is memory. I didn't understand what it meant then, but the Darkaby did. Because when I tried to speak my name aloud, the sound didn't come out right. My throat tightened. My voice cracked halfway through, glitching, replaying itself like an audio loop. Goo-goo-goo. The static imitated it, laughing softly between repetitions. G-G-G-Hoon-Ah. I screamed, but even that came back warped, layered with other voices. Then I heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, circling me. I turned, flashlight trembling in my hand. A figure stood just beyond the fog. At first, I thought it was another hallucination, a shadow, a trick of the light. But then it stepped forward, and I saw my own face staring back. Not a reflection, not a ghost, me. Its clothes were mine, but soaked in ash. Its skin shimmered like wood polished with oil, the veins glowing faintly red. It smiled, and my stomach dropped. It was the same smile as the mask. "Who are you?" I whispered. It tilted its head, the motion precise, almost curious. Then, in my own voice, it said, "You called me. I didn't. You did, when you lit the fire. When you spoke into the tower. You opened the channel, Jihuni. Now there must be two. What do you mean?" It reached out a hand. The fingers were long, the joints cracking like burning wood. Every echo needs an origin. Every story needs a mouth. You speak. I remember. I backed away, but the ground gave way beneath me, soft, spongy, like wet soil. My shoes sank. The smell of earth and smoke rose up, dizzying. "Don't fight," it said gently. "We can share the breath." I fell. The static roared. Darkness. When I awoke, the forest was silent. The figure was gone. My flashlight lay beside me, its beam faintly flickering. I looked down at my hand, clean. No blood, no burns. The soil was smooth again. For a moment, I thought maybe it had ended. Maybe it had all been the product of exhaustion, fear, madness. Then I saw the recorder lying beside me, still on. The screen flashed red. I pressed play. My own voice came through, calm and steady. This is the 7th recording. The entity now imitates me completely. It speaks my words before I do. I think it's learning. I froze. The timestamp was from an hour ago, while I was unconscious. The last line came quieter, like a whisper pressed against the mic. It knows you're listening. The recorder clicked off. Silence, then. From behind me, a voice. Mine said softly, "Stop recording." I turned, nothing there, just fog. But as I listened closer, the fog itself was whispering, faint and rhythmic, like breath caught in a loop. I leaned in. The whisper formed words, low and deliberate. "You forgot which one you are." The tower lights flickered once more, then stabilized, glowing steady red against the night. I could see 2 shadows at its base now, both moving the same way, turning the same head, breathing the same rhythm. Mine and mine. By the time the sun rose again, I no longer knew which day it was. The fog had erased all sense of time, every hour folding into the next like static loops on a broken tape. The tower's red pulse never faded. It had become the only rhythm left in the world. I walked without direction, recorder in hand, though I hadn't pressed record in hours. My reflection in the small screen flickered, sometimes mine, sometimes his. The other me, the one that smiled too easily, the one that moved a fraction of a second before I did. The ground hummed underfoot. The forest was breathing with the same pulse. I knew now what that meant. The boundary was gone. The tower's signal had spread into everything. Roots, air, memory, even thought. When I passed the river, I saw faces rippling beneath the surface, not corpses, but echoes, fragments of memory. Villagers, soldiers, strangers. They mouthed words I couldn't hear. Their eyes glowed faintly red, like coals seen through glass. I wanted to turn away, but one face rose higher, breaking the surface. My grandmother, Hermione. Her mouth opened, water spilling from it in thick streams. The voice that came out was both hers and something deeper, older. "The fire does not end, Jihuna. It changes shape." I fell to my knees. The water turned black. The reflection shattered, and beneath it, a second face appeared, mine again, grinning wide. "Let's finish the story," it said. The river went silent. The tower's hum grew louder, calling. I ran. Branches whipped at my arms. Roots snagged my ankles. The closer I got, the hotter the air became. Though there was no flame, only vibration, heat made of sound. When I reached the clearing, I saw the second me waiting beneath the tower. The mask hung around his neck now, the wood pulsing like a heart. His eyes glowed faintly, not evil, not kind, just aware. He smiled. "We've come full circle." "Why me?" I asked. My voice cracked. "Why my family?" "Because memory needs a vessel. Your grandmother carried the story. She buried it. You unearthed it." He stepped closer, our shadows merged. The hum of the tower grew until it was almost unbearable. "There can't be 2 of us," he said softly. "Not anymore." I raised the recorder between us, my only weapon, my only proof. The screen flickered, my reflection splitting into a dozen, then 100 versions, each one slightly different. Some smiled, some screamed. One whispered, "Say the name." "What name?" I shouted. "Oh, the true one." The tower's red glow flared white-hot. Images burned behind my eyes. The killie, the fire, the villagers kneeling, the horned shadow rising. My grandmother crying out in a language older than either of us. Then I remembered. The name whispered in every lullaby she sang to me before sleep. The one she never translated, Dark Abbey. The word tore through the air like lightning. The tower screamed, a deep, metallic roar that shook the ground. The second me convulsed, his body cracking like wood under heat. The mask shattered. Light poured from his mouth and eyes, spiraling upward into the antenna. The forest erupted in motion, trees bending, soil rippling, the fog burning away. I fell to the ground, covering my face as the light consumed everything. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. Clear, blue. The tower was gone. Only its concrete foundation remained, charred and smoking. The recorder lay beside me, half melted. I pressed play. Static. Then faintly my own voice. Calm, steady, distant. The fire sleeps again. Memory is safe. But if someone builds another tower here, we'll wake. The recording clicked off. I laughed, dry, shaking. Maybe relief? Maybe madness. I didn't know anymore. When I looked into the van's side mirror, for the first time in days, I didn't see the other me. Just my own face, pale, tired, but mine. I started the engine and drove down the mountain road. The air was clean. Birds were singing. Civilization waited somewhere beyond the trees. But as I passed the old "Welcome to Hollow Creek" sign, the radio flickered on by itself, static. Then my voice, calm, soft, familiar. This is Ji-Hoon Kim, reporting live from Hollow Creek. The fire remembers. I slammed the radio off. The voice kept talking. No signal, no battery. Just sound, pulsing through the speakers, matching the rhythm of my heart. Toke, toke, toke. I turned the rear-view mirror slightly and froze. In the reflection, someone was sitting in the back seat. He smiled. The same smile I thought I'd buried in the ashes. "Don't worry," he whispered. "We're the same broadcast now." The static swelled. The world flickered white.